All right, everybody, welcome back to the Friday night prepper pre-party show. I've got a good one for you tonight. We're going to give people just a couple minutes here to get in and get the notifications, and anybody who wants to watch the ads, I always appreciate that. Let me do brief introductions for the channel first, and then as people are getting in and getting settled, I will go ahead and introduce the guest. If this is your first time on the channel, this is Prepping with Sarge. I usually go live on Friday nights with the Friday Night Prepper Pre-Party Show. Why do we call it the Friday Night Prepper Pre-Party Show? Because I start early and I try to end early so that you can get out, do stuff with your family, or go to other live streams. A lot of times Prepping by Faith follows me. I don't know if she's going live tonight. I don't think so, but if she pops into chat, we'll find out for sure. And then Angry Prepper sometimes is on later on. And then my friend Bacon usually goes on late night, so we will probably see him pop in tonight at some point. But we talk about all things preparedness here, a little bit of wilderness survival. I like to show you my foraging videos. We do some gardening. We do talk occasionally about financial preparedness as well, storm preparedness, all kinds of fun things like that. Really would appreciate it if you enjoy the content tonight. Please give us a thumbs up, and if you enjoy my guest tonight, please make sure we're going to drop the links for his content several times tonight. Please make sure you go over there and subscribe. Give him lots of support. Really appreciate that. And if you're brand new to the channel, if you like what you see, please consider subscribing. All right, I see some people popping in on chat. We're going to go ahead and introduce my guest tonight. Tonight I have, and I don't know why I waited so long to have you on. You and I have been kind of friends on Instagram for a little while. I apologize. I should have probably had you on a long time ago, but I'm glad you're here tonight, and I'm glad the audience is going to get a chance to meet you because you put out fabulous content. You really deserve a lot more followers. We're going to see if we can do that tonight. But please welcome Nat the Preparedness Guy. How are you doing?
Super. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your content and where the audience can find you.
Well, I am Nat, the Preparedness Guy, the Preparedness Guy. Uh, I'm mostly active on Instagram. Been playing around with the reels and everything else, having fun with that. I've scaled back just a little bit. I'm trying to focus on more quality instead of quantity, but still just get them out for fun. I've told my wife I'll keep doing them as long as I'm having fun doing them. So I'm a professional emergency manager, and on the side, I'm the preparedness guy. I'm all about individual preparedness, which is kind of a controversial topic in the field of emergency management. People have mixed opinions about preppers and the entire preparedness community. So it's kind of my crusade is to bridge the gap. Obviously preppers have their reservations about emergency managers, particularly the federal, and and ended up in a FEMA camp or something like that. So just trying to find some common ground and getting the best practices and tools of emergency management and the necessity of individual preparedness and bringing them together.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot more common ground if people would, take a chance to look at some of that stuff. I think emergency preparedness content is like the gateway drug for prepping,
Right.
really. I love what you do on Instagram. So those for my audience, if you're watching this and you've never seen the Preparedness Guy on Instagram, I really encourage you to go over there and check him out. I have questions like, how do you come up with this? So a lot of your stuff is like comedy based, right? You try to put the fun into preparedness.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen any of my YouTube videos. I've got kind of a background. I have a gumball machine on one side, and that's basically to remind me not to take any of this too seriously. I really try to avoid the fear. I don't try to hype that up. And my whole philosophy is the reverse. Like, we're going to look at the needs that we have and the things that we love, and we're going to focus on that. So I try not to take it too seriously. Try to have fun, fun with everything. And on Instagram, it's a pretty good mode for finding the training audios and just doing a preparedness spin with them.
How do you come up with your ideas? Because like every day when I go on there, you've got a new reel of yours is floating by, and you do stuff that I wish I could come up with, to be honest. I mean, I love making people laugh. I wish I was better at it. And I've got a couple little funny ones out there, but you come up with funny stuff all the time. Where are you getting your ideas from?
I used to think exactly what you're saying right now, and really, I started saving the audios if I saw something that as people are doing things, I'm like, oh, there's a preparedness spin for that. You just start to as you start doing it, it comes a little bit easier. I didn't have a bunch of original ideas when I started. It was kind of I think my first reel was not funny. It was just me flushing a toilet with water, and then I just started practicing. And if you do it every day, and for over a year I did it every day, and if you do it every day, they're not all going to be winners. And but you get a lot of practice. So that's kind of how it goes. You just practice it, have fun. Again, I didn't take myself too seriously, so if I didn't get a lot of views or likes, then I just did the next one and moved on.
So when you jump between characters and things like that, I have to ask, have you done acting and stuff like that at any point, like high school acting or anything? No?
Not really. I mean, I guess I was probably in a couple plays or something. I'm sure I was, but I never considered myself an actor. But I have maybe been a little bit of a class clown and play around with that sort of thing. So I don't think it takes a lot of acting skills to play on Instagram, especially when I'm doing like a lip sync video using somebody else's audio. Yeah. It's all there. You just gotta just say it, and yeah.
Well, you're very clever at it, and I know I'm kind of I keep throwing compliments at you,
Thank you.
I want you to know it is very, very impressive. When I'm scrolling through, a lot of times with Instagram, you're scrolling. When I see one of yours, I do stop and I watch it because you always can get people to laugh. So I hope my audience will check that out. Let's take a minute here and say hi to some people in chat. I saw some names popping up that we, of course, know. Van City Preppers, good to see you. Lee Cold War Preppers, always good to see you. I appreciate you all. Let's see, who else did I see? Scrolling down. Penny Pincher Prepper, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Hill County Prepper, good to see you. Fred Petros, good to see you. And there's my friend Bacon right there that we were talking about earlier. Hill Country Prepper, good to see you. LG, always good to see you, my friends. All right, I think I got Prepping by Faith. Are you going live tonight? We were talking about that earlier, trying to figure out if you're going live at 8:30, we'll try to make sure that we have got this wrapped up in time for that. All right, I think, did I get everybody?
I love this typo on there. Hey, Propane by Faith.
Propane.
That's not far off. No offense, Penny Pitching Prepper.
Yeah, but one of these times when I'm setting up my stream, it's going to say "Peeping with Sarge." I know it is.
Of course it is.
If you all have any questions as we go along, as usual, throw them in caps so that I will try to catch them. I really appreciate that. And if we have an audio issue or whatever, just try to catch our attention. And we're going to go ahead and Propane by Faith. We're going to keep going here. What got you started with the whole emergency preparedness thing?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of I was just telling someone, they asked me what my origin story was. I told them I was bitten by a radioactive emergency kit.
I love it.
When I was younger. I got to come up with a better one than that. I don't want to use any cliche answers like, oh, it's always been something I've done. It's not something I've always done, but I camped a bit as a kid. I was in the Boy Scouts, which was a significant part of it. Became an Eagle Scout. Had great examples around me of people who were competent and cool, calm, and collected in emergencies, and kind of just wanted to be able to handle my own when something happened, and to be able to help people. That was... I remember one time in high school, I was in an economics class, and this isn't the pivotal moment of my life. I'm going to become a prepper now, but it was something that I think back on pretty often. And I heard every desk start screeching, like they're being moved across the floor. And we're working on some worksheets, and I look around, and everybody's moving, and I turn and look, and there's one kid who's not, and he's having a seizure in his desk. And I thought, wow, I don't know what to do. So I did what everyone else was doing. I just scooted my desk. And we put all the desks away from him, and we stood around at the front of the classroom looking at him. Somebody ran for help. I went to the office to get some help, and I looked at him, and I had this thought, I don't know what to do, but I need to do something. And so I went over there. I said, I knew that if we didn't take him out of his chair, then he would fall and possibly hit his head. So I said, we need to get him out of his chair. I stepped forward. The teacher came and helped me. We laid him down, and I didn't know what else to do. I didn't learn to put people in the rescue position or any of that. And it wasn't a good feeling. I just knew that I was like, man, I should know what to do there. It can't be that complicated. So I learned, and there were a few experiences like that where I saw something, I'm like, I don't like not knowing what to do. So I learned it, and that kind of set me on a path of just wanting to be more useful to other people when bad things happen, because bad things happen sometimes, and you can either do something about it or not.
Right, absolutely. And you mentioned Boy Scouts too. I was in Boy Scouts as well. I feel like Boy Scouts is another kind of gateway drug to prepping.
Right.
I'm guessing you probably you were inducted into the Order of the Arrow as well.
That's right.
Yeah, and that was a big moment for me too. Like that, I really was I don't want to get too much into that, but the whole experience of being inducted to the Order of the Arrow, which is it's like an inner group within the Boy Scouts where you have to be voted in by your peers, and there's tests to that where you have to test certain aspects of your fortitude. There's a wilderness survival component to it as well. And for me, that was like a really big turning point where I really started to realize I like this stuff. Like I really like this,
Yeah, I did the Order of the Arrow, and I also took the Wilderness Survival Merit Badge like 4 times. Yeah. You only need to do a merit badge one time, but I earned that one like 4 times, and just really enjoyed it. And at one point when I was in college, I was like, man, wouldn't it be great if you could do something like this as a career? Mm-hmm. And I saw like rec management and all that stuff, and then I saw their salaries. I was like, maybe not. I wish that were more possible. But then I saw emergency management, and I'm like, well, that's not like wilderness survival, but I really do like all of the preparedness stuff, and I headed that direction.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. What are the things you think that people should be? This is general, not so much to regional, but we'll just say the United States. What are some of the things that you think people should be focusing on going into 2023?
Great question. I think a big part of all of this is getting out of debt. So if you can make sure that you have your basic needs met first. So that's something you can do, is make sure you've got at least an emergency kit, a few days worth of everything, and then really just try to tackle that debt. Mm-hmm. And then focus on your needs. That's the foundation of everything, is your needs.
Yeah, the interest rates are going to just keep getting cranked up here until there's certain markers that our friends in the government are looking for. Number one, they really seem to want to get unemployment to go up, which is really strange. But that seems to be one of the things that they're looking for. Consumer spending, they want to go down. Now, there's going to be consequences to both of those, which is going to also be, as spending decreases, eventually big corporations will start to lay off, and little corporations, like my wife and I both run a small business. Small businesses get hurt really, really quick in these kind of situations. So we're having to be really, really careful right now. I 100% agree. Like, be careful about how you're spending your money right now. Try not to take on debt. Try to pay down your debt as best you can. We know these interest rates aren't going to be like this forever, but for now, probably going into 2023, they seem like they're just going to keep ratcheting them up.
All right. And you need as much cash flow as you can, and getting rid of your debt allows you to take that cash and put it towards other necessities. With prices of everything going up, you're going to need everything you can get.
Mm-hmm. So Armageddon Preparedness had a question here. What is the 50 miler badge? I don't remember that.
Yeah, I think I remember. I don't think I did the 50 miler. I did some 20 milers. The hiking merit badge required at least one 20 mile hike. I remember doing that. I did a 50 mile bike ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the longest one I remember doing in Scouts was about 18 miles with a backpack. That was rough.
Yeah.
Let's see. I saw Vanessa Kitty. Thank you so much. Carbon Q. And of course, I saw with that question there, Armageddon. Preparedness. Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all. If you're just tuning in tonight, my guest is Nat, the Preparedness Guy, and we're going to be dropping his link throughout the stream. If you have questions as we go along, please feel free to drop them into caps so I can catch them. I appreciate that. And thank you, mods. If you notice that I missed something, just kind of flag me down and get my attention. Really appreciate you all. What skills are you personally working on right now? And like, where's your focus for you and your family?
Oh, good question. They're all good questions. We have a freeze dryer. I'm trying to figure out what works, what doesn't for that, and keep it working because it is a little bit temperamental. So just trying to figure out what we can put away for long-term food storage. And then also one aspect of self-reliance, I know we already talked about finances a little bit, but just focusing on the entrepreneurial side of things, trying to buffer my own skills as an independent person and figure out what I can do to generate some more income that isn't reliant on my job or that has more value towards other people. There's a book called The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, and it's by Robert Heinlein, and he did Starship Troopers, a lot of different sci-fi, and I'll try to summarize this real quick, but basically there's a lunar colony, and they kind of have a little rebellion, and they are somewhat of an anarchist society. He explores the concepts of anarchy, so no government. But at some point, they kind of rebel against the corporation that's running the moon, and they're doing interplanetary relations or between the moon and the Earth. Going down there, they get this story is not even relevant, but it gets to the point eventually. At one point, they go down to Earth, and it's extremely expensive to get things back up to the moon when they're headed back up. So the main character and one of the supporting characters are heading back up. And the supporting character, he has this brass cannon. And the main character says, it's going to cost. It costs a lot. That's a lot of extra weight to get back up. We only have so much weight that we can put on the rocket or whatever they're using to get up there. And he basically said it's worth it because it reminds him of the story of a man who. And it makes me think I could have started with this story to begin with, without the background. There's a man who worked at like a town hall. And his job was to polish these brass cannons around the town hall. And he worked for a long time. He was able to save up a little bit for himself and his wife. And after many years, he kind of got sick of it. And he says, you know what? I'm going to go into business for myself. And he cashed in his savings, and he bought his own brass cannon. And so he says, what do you think of that? And the main character says, well, I think he's stupid. The point is, like, he spent his life doing a job that someone was willing to pay him for, but didn't necessarily have real value. So when he went into business for himself, he buys his own brass cannon to polish. It does nothing for him, and it doesn't add value to anybody. So what I'm trying to do is just make sure that everything I do is worth doing on my own. That if I were figuratively to cash in and go on that I'm still doing something that overall adds value to society and to other people, and to myself, because he definitely isn't going to get paid to polish his own brass cannon at home.
So you mentioned there, like, setting up some other ways to create some self-sufficient income, that kind of thing. I think that's a really good suggestion too for everybody, and it's one of the things I've talked about before on this channel when we've talked about financial preparedness, is that we should be aiming to set up as many multiple streams of income that are separate. So you have your primary job for most people, of course, but what else are you doing that has money coming in, right? So I've got a side job where I do consulting for people. I do some in the field of mental health. I do some public speaking, and I get paid for that. I've got YouTube. I've got investments that generate some dividend income. I'm always trying to think about, okay, even if it's like seems like small, like an extra $20 a week, $20 a week on top of 7 other streams of income, that's maybe that pays for my lunch,
right,
or whatever, right? And so then if one system falls apart, which can easily happen, I worked for a building where I worked for a program in mental health where they just decided we're taking this funding source and we're putting it somewhere else. And there wasn't a lot of notice on that. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, my primary source of income's gone.
Right.
What's going to stop me from losing my home? Now I'm in a real SHTF situation. How am I going to keep my lights on? Right. How am I going to keep food on the table? How am I going to feed my pets? Right. So the more redundancies you can build in terms of creating new types of income, even though they may all seem small, it's still something. And some of those will grow into bigger things. So I like what you're doing there. And you mentioned the freeze drying thing, which I know you sent me some a while back. I think I sent you some t-shirts or something, right? What did I send you? Oh, you got it on?
Yeah.
You rock. Thank you. I appreciate that. How's that going for you, the selling the freeze?
It's good. So we had our freeze dryer went out for part of the summer. We had a couple months where we couldn't do anything. We had done farmers markets. The laws where I live say I can only basically sell limited places. I can't, unless I get an inspected kitchen, I can't sell to a store for them to put it up in like a little tourist shop or whatever. I couldn't do something like that. I can only sell at specific venues. But it went pretty well. Overall, it was pretty fun, and it's just so we did freeze-dried candies, Skittles, taffy, Milk Duds, a few other things, and fruit sometimes too. Those took a while longer, but going to farmers markets and sharing those, which if we just went to farmers markets, we're handing out pamphlets for preparedness or something like that.
Nobody's going
to want it. But this is something, they get something, and we're making money off of it. And then on each one of them, I had a label that says, "Hey, if you want a free emergency plan, here's a website. You go there, they can get their emergency plan."
Awesome.
And talking about entrepreneurship, I'll tell everyone else to get my emergency plan, but that is one way that I get people on an email list, and then I can communicate with them, build a relationship, and then if I have any products coming out, I can offer it to the people on my email list.
So where can they find this website to sign up for the free emergency plan?
Yeah, so it's preparednessguy.com.
There you go. It's easy.
Yeah, and it'll be just right there. You put in your email address, and then you'll get an automated email with the link to the PDF, and you can always access that forever. And you can download it, print it off, and you'll fill in your family's evacuation area. You can do a floor plan on there. Lots of stuff like that. So
cool.
I try to develop it based on what I've done for different buildings and organizations I've worked for, what I've seen through OSHA training, what I see the Red Cross has their own emergency plan. I just try to take the best of everything, and a big focus in mine and a lot of what I do is the training and exercises. So making sure that you are staying on top of practicing these things, having a fun emergency drill with your family, making it fun too. So it doesn't have to be high stress, but so that you practice it and go through it.
So as Van City Prepper says, you might know a thing or two about manuals.
Yeah.
That's your life, right?
Yeah. No, it's, I have the, I don't know if it's the coolest boring job or the most boring cool job, but it's one of those, there's a lot of just sitting at the computer in emergency management. But yeah, I created the emergency plan for all of you, but I do a lot of the planning, documentation for drills and exercises, all sorts of that, things like that for my organization.
And with your stuff, do you cover active shooter stuff too?
Yeah, so that's a big topic right now. A lot of people are focusing on that, and that's an interesting. It's an interesting thing because people focus on what they're currently afraid of. Right now, they're currently afraid of active shooters because that's what's in the news. The news drives a lot of fear. So part of my job as an emergency manager is to mitigate that fear, not just for the individuals. So any organization I work for, I have three roles. One is the organization. That's business continuity, making sure that the organization itself is prepared. The next is to the employees, making sure they're trained so that they can respond, and then to whoever we serve. So It could be community members or customers, or depending on the organization I work for. So there are the three major focus areas, and the leadership drives a lot of this. We do an assessment at the beginning of the year, and these are the hazards that seem likely, all of that, and then that kind of drives what we train. But when people are scared, and we do it as preppers too, is we sometimes let the fears drive our actions instead of focusing on our needs or what really is most likely.
Right.
And it's not that we ignore those things, but if it takes a significant turn of our time, effort, and resources, then we really have to decide: is this actually a threat that has increased, or is it just something that was there and now is just more visible?
Mm-hmm. I think that you're talking kind of about like, not seeing the trees for the forest kind of concept, right? That we can get lasered in on one thing, right, and not really see the fire that's right in front of us.
Right. Yeah. I mentioned before, focusing on your needs is most important. I was just at prepper camp recently, which was really fun. It was in North Carolina, and I gave a presentation on preparing like a pro. And I asked them, I said, well, what are you preparing for? And people would give, economic collapse or an EMP or something like that. And I'm like, wrong. And it was, I was just messing with them. But that is really preparing against something, right? You've got a hazard that you're afraid of, and you're trying to prepare against it. But really what you prepare for are the things that you identify as what can be impacted. If a tornado hits an empty meadow, that's not a disaster. If a tornado hits your neighborhood, that is a disaster.
Right.
So it's the same hazard. It's the same tornado in both examples. Only one of them is a disaster. So what's the difference? Is that it impacts your life or people's lives. And that's what you look at. What is the impact, and how does it impact me? Does it impact my basic needs, food, water, shelter, communications, transportation, all of that? And that's the key, is you always look at those. If some of those are more likely to be impacted by the most likely hazards, that's what you address first. And of course, you should have a response plan for things like tornadoes, earthquakes, fire, but that is not necessarily what you should focus on. Just know, hey, when this happens, I can assess the situation and take appropriate action, but the ultimate thing is my life safety, and then making sure I have my needs met.
Mm-hmm. Do you from a psychology standpoint, because my training is in more mental health field, right? Do you all, when you're looking at that kind of stuff, are you figuring in Maslow's hierarchy of human needs and that kind of thing?
I am. It's not like codified in emergency management practices, I don't think, but it is something I'm thinking about. It definitely does play into things, and mostly we just break it down to life safety, then property, and then the environment. So that's like our priorities. But it's just life safety is our number one priority, and then if you are working with a jurisdiction to mass care or evacuation or shelter planning, that's when you have to start really focusing on people's needs, because then they become partly your responsibility when they're in your care.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, let me jump back to comments here for a second. And let's see, the 50-miler was basically a combination of hiking and canoeing for 50 miles. I definitely did not do that. I can tell you that I did not.
I didn't either. Sounds fun. At least the canoeing part. I'll hike a little bit.
Bacon wants one of these brass cannons.
I bought one. I bought a little one, and I put it on my desk. Yeah,
that's outstanding.
Yeah, and just a reminder, whatever you do, make sure it's worth something.
That's right. We did 50 miles El Paso to White Sands. Oh, that's cool. Nice job, Lee. All right. I was asking for a friend. Yeah, $20 is yes. Well, I mean, we can get into a whole nother discussion about all kinds of things. $20. Are we talking about $20 fiat currency? We're talking about $20 Canadian dollars or US dollars. We're talking $20 in silver.
Yeah.
What are you thinking on that, Nat?
Oh, I guess. Yeah, I guess my response on what I'm willing to do for $20 depends on how valuable that $20 is. So $20 is not $20.
That's true. You can't get much with $20 these days either. That's what you did. Okay, cool. And Steve, I see you popping in there. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's see if I missed anybody else. And y'all, if I missed a question, just let me know. I apologize. I'm doing my best. Ashley Wood, thank you so much for joining us. Preparedness Guy's freeze-dried candy is bomb. It is fire. His saltwater taffy that he sent me, like, I think you sent me 2 bags, and I opened up one, and I was like, okay, I'm going to open one, and I'm going to save one for, like, a camping trip. Yeah,
sure.
I destroyed both of those in one night.
Yeah, the taffy is fun. It's like hard cotton candy. I really like the milk duds. Those are my favorite. I could eat those like popcorn.
Very cool. And there you go. If you need help fixing your freeze dryer next time, that's who you need to contact right there.
Awesome.
I love it. Silver Scorpion, I saw you popping in there. Thank you so much. Who's our prepping nurse? Thank you so much for joining us. If you all are enjoying the content tonight, if you're joining in just now, if you enjoy it at some point during the stream, give us a thumbs up. If you get a chance, please check out Nat the Preparedness Guy over on his YouTube channel. And he really puts out a lot of content on Instagram. Appreciate it if you all could check him out. And I'm telling you, you're missing out if you are not subscribed to him over there on Instagram. Here's a good question from Lee. Scenario to plan a response. Aircraft crash in Metro. What was the toughest scenario to plan a response for?
Oh, that's a good question. There are a lot of tough scenarios, a lot of complex things that we plan for. Aircraft crashes. I've worked with the local airport where I am. Planning a crash, how the mass casualty responds to that. Fortunately, what's really great about the emergency management is that the people who respond, firefighters, police, the airport responders as well, they're all pretty good at what they do. The EMTs and medics show up, and they're pretty good at what they do. So you just have to make sure the dots are being connected, that the people have the right tools, that they have communication happening, and whatever other resources they need. So it's kind of a behind the scenes, just connecting the dots, but working with competent professionals makes it a lot easier. I did respond to a downed airplane one time. It was an F-16 crash when I was with the Air Force, and basically we just had to cordon off the area, make sure that there are no hazardous materials, and fortunately the pilot was fine. There were enough there are helicopters flying around. He ejected, parachuted, and a helicopter landed just a couple minutes later, picked him up, and took him to the hospital. So.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, shucks. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Burpee Yoga Uncle, thank you for popping in. I see you out there. Virginia Bushcraft, I really appreciate you. Thanks for joining us tonight. And Creative Redundancy, I see you there. Thank you so much. Good questions tonight. I really appreciate it. And let me just run through this. Mrs. Gatto, thank you for joining us. Love that. Did I miss anybody's questions here? If I did, you might have to yell at me. Ad Cap Tandem Vulgus, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. All right, I think this guest is handsome, says the Preparedness Guy.
Oh, blushing.
Did I miss anything? Okay, I think I'm caught up. Oh, here you go. Here's a question for you. What do you think of the FEMA CERT training program? Any good?
So that's yeah. So that's the Community Emergency Response Team, and it used to be federally funded through Citizen Corps, but the federal funds have dried up. Basically, another example of what people are afraid of is what gets funded. So you get people thinking something's important and get them scared enough, they'll fund it. Everyone will be all on board until the next thing comes up. And CERT fell off the FEMA and federal funding, but a lot of jurisdictions decided, hey, this is valuable enough for us to keep going. So I think it's a valuable program in a couple ways, not necessarily the way that it's always used. Some of the big jurisdictions have a very robust program where it's like an augmentee program or a emergency responder auxiliary. So these CERT team members, they get trained in search and rescue, firefighting, like pretty basic level, first aid, and then incident command, and they work together and they can integrate into a local response. For me, that's not the benefit of the program. For me, the benefit is you take people who are everyday people from the community and you give them those skills. Then when a disaster happens, they start at their home. They check themselves, their family, they go to their neighbors, and so you have pockets of preparedness everywhere.
Love that.
I think that was the real value of the program. So jurisdictions that have it, if you haven't taken a CERT program, generally there's no commitment. You take the training, and they're not like they don't really hold you to it. Like if you volunteer for a fire at a fire department or a fire rescue squad, you're going to have to do like 2 days of volunteer work a month. Which, if you have the time, that's a good trade-off. They'll train you too. But for CERT, there's usually not a commitment like that. Maybe some of the big jurisdictions. Most of the time, it's just free training. And,
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So you go. Maybe it's like 8 weeks, 1 night a week, and you get some pretty good training on first aid, light search and rescue, firefighting, using like a fire extinguisher, and a little bit of disaster psychology and some anti-terrorism awareness.
Awesome. Yeah, we have, so in my field, if you had a situation like a plane crash, right, and they deploy people from my field to help, not just with the survivors, people who didn't survive with their families, and we work with first responders too, like, because there's that traumatization from the response, and, not to get too gory on here, but you know what I'm talking about, like they can come across some pretty bad scenes, and then things can kind of get stuck up here a little bit. Right. So we come in. We have something in my field called mental health first aid, which is offered all around the country. Have you ever had that in your area? Have you seen that?
I've seen it, yeah. I think it's awesome. It's really important. Traditionally...
Because I'm sorry. Go ahead. You first.
Well, traditionally, people that are emergency responders are kind of expected to be like macho, tough guys. Right. But the dynamic is definitely shifting.
There's a shortage of therapists, just like there's a shortage of many professions right now. If there's something that big goes on here in my city, just as an example, we've got a couple hundred people that can respond. Sure, they probably are not all going to respond because maybe they're out of town or whatever, that kind of thing. And we can, if I get to somebody in the 48 hours after something like that happens, I can do a lot of damage control, and help somebody. But I can't be in all places at all times. So the more people who get that mental health first aid training, just like you were talking about with the FEMA CERT, then, they can do a lot of damage control too. And it's stuff that I have talked a little bit about on my channel. I do some mental health pieces on my channel because I want as many people out there to know, like, just doing a few basic things in the aftermath of like a massive tornado or a massive wildfire or something like that. If you know how to do a few of these things, you're going to help the whole community, because that lets me talk to somebody else while you're helping somebody, and Joe's helping somebody and Nat's helping somebody. And because those first 48 hours, first 72 hours after a big incident like that, so huge. And when it's something huge like Ian or Katrina or something like that, it's going to be a prolonged period of time before we can get to everybody.
Right. I mean, even now, people who faced Hurricane Ian last month they're still
waiting.
Yeah, they are having a terrible situation. Some areas are reopening and don't have adequate access to the internet, so no real communication with the outside, trouble with electricity, and it all just wears on you over time. And during the incident, and especially for the first days after, body recovery, you're seeing people floating in the water. Like it can definitely have an impact. But something as simple as just being able to talk to someone afterwards and put it into words and help you process that just kind of connects a lot of these dots.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for all the first responders I work with, I tell them, if you start feeling like, hey, this one's sticking in my head a little bit, you need to talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be a therapist all the time, but you need to talk to somebody.
Right.
Start getting it out of here and onto the table. And number two, you gotta, if you catch yourself thinking things like, what if we had gotten there 5 minutes sooner? You can't do that. That's the kind of stuff a lot of times that will lead to post-traumatic stress disorder down the road, because your mind is now in this wrestling game. And it's a lot of times it's not even so much the incident or the gore of a bad car crash or bad plane crash or a burned body. It's the after effect of what we're doing up here that leads to the long-term symptoms.
Right. I don't know if you've read On Combat by Dave Grossman.
I've not.
It's basically it's around violent force encounters, and he targets it mostly towards military and police, but it talks about the psychological and physiological effects of combat, of being in a high stress situation, and there are a lot of great lessons to be learned for preppers as part of that. Even if you never end up in a violent force encounter, just knowing that emergencies happen, there are a lot of skills. And one of the things there is that he talks about is after an incident, they brought the group together. I believe it was in a school, and they started talking things out. And they're saying like, "Oh, this is what I did," and somebody else says this, and then they're like, "Oh, I thought that it happened this other way," and suddenly you're getting context to what you're thinking and feeling, and it helps get some of that blame off you, really. Because if you think that you're in it alone, and then you realize that a lot more people were going into this and supporting each other, and things were working out for the better, then it really just adds a better picture to what happened.
100%. When I've done some of that stuff with some of my first responders, and sometimes even we'll look at footage afterwards, like body cam footage or dash cam footage or whatever, and they'll say, "I didn't even realize that officer so-and-so was 5 feet behind me that whole time. I had backup and I didn't know it," because they get that, combat tunnel vision. Yeah. All right. We got a question here about the crash. Do you know what caused the plane crash?
I don't remember. I did know. It was some sort of just technical issue. The pilot made the right moves for ejecting, and something that was out of his control, I think.
Some kind of mechanical failure, it sounds like. Yeah. Lazarus Long, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. Titan Preparedness, good to see you. Yeah, always good to see you, my friend. I don't know if you want to tackle this one or not. You want me to pass that?
I won't say. No, this is a good prepper.
Good opportunity.
I did talk to someone from FEMA. Well, I've talked to quite a few people from FEMA, and I always bring up this and joke about it. But one person from FEMA, they're like, "Do you think the government agency that brought you Hurricane Katrina could pull off something like that?" And it's like, yeah, maybe not. Like, they basically said like they're not organized enough to pull it off. There are not enough people who could keep secrets. Not to say they don't have plans for large scale evacuation and assembly of people or mass care, but I don't think it's as nefarious. However, just like everything else in the government, it could always be misused if somebody takes advantage of the opportunity. So, it is just a kind of a joke for me. I don't think anything of it, of FEMA camps or any of that, but it is kind of fun to joke about.
Yeah, and the system sometimes isn't as advanced as people want to think it is. I can tell you that during the pandemic, the agency that I work with was sent supplies that were supposed to be for a disease pandemic, and they were like in really poor disrepair. like literally like you take them out and the elastic strap would like crumble in your hands and stuff. So like people think they use there's all these plans and this and this and this.
Yeah, that
I wish
that
it
they
was
have
better off than it was, to be honest with you.
Right. People think they just have like just tons of food stored. They could just wheel it all into your community. Almost all of that is just in time memorandums of understanding. If FEMA is deploying any resources, almost always it's something that they have an agreement with a private business, and they are bringing it to you. That business is basically bringing it in at that point, not from a warehouse.
Yeah.
I remember back in 2015 or 2016, I was going through a stockpile of N95s from 2009 from H1N1, and same thing, they were just dry rot, and COVID hit. People still had those things from more than 10 years earlier. They still had masks, and the elastic is just
they were garbage. We ended up having to throw ours in the trash. We were like, we can't. This doesn't do anything for us.
Right.
Yeah. And that was a wake up call for me, because like I guess I assumed that there was like these giant stockpiles of warehouses for these emergencies, and I actually wish it was in better shape than it was.
You know, I think the one thing they do maintain fairly well is probably like a medication supply of things for counterterrorism. That would be like antibiotics and all that. I see one question to Corsair trainers, an MOU. It's a Memorandum of Understanding. Basically, it's kind of like a contract. It's not as binding, but it says, hey, if something happens, can you provide us a service? So if you worked if you had a facility, you own a business, and you have an MOU with a generator company, that when there's a power outage, they kind of reserve a generator for you, and it basically lays out how that gets to you, any funding sources, all of that. So it's just pre-planning for an emergency use object.
Okay. Portugal Preppers, appreciate tuning in from across the pond. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yep, PTSD is a thing, and it happens, and it can happen to anybody. Right. All it takes is one bad event. To be honest with you, we are all at risk of that.
Yeah, and there's like residual or secondary PTSD. Like you don't have to be the one who did the thing or necessarily experience the thing. Now everything's blasted online and on the news. Mm-hmm. And then if you've got a loved one who had to go through it, and you've got the worry for them, it can all impact people in different ways.
It does stink when a plane crashes in your backyard. Let's hope that doesn't happen. This is a good question here. And what do you think will be the next big crisis or event? You go first, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. Focusing on the thing you're afraid of, or the thing that you think is going to happen, versus your needs. Like focus on your needs, identify your needs, and focus on that. That said, I think I think our economy has a potential for some bad shape. I've always had three major scenarios in the back of my mind as high risk, somewhat low probability incidents. These are the ones that you joke about zombies and stuff, but zombies aren't going to happen. Right. Nuclear war is always a possibility, but it's pretty low. Low possibility, low probability, but it's high risk, low probability. The things that are kind of in the middle ground but are high risk, pandemic, which now we've had more of sorts. Thankfully, it wasn't like airborne Ebola, but still impacted everybody. Economic collapse or crisis, and then so one is usually is found naturally, the pandemic, and one is man-made, and that's the technological or systemic, and that's the economic collapse, and that's basically the fault of the government and the monetary policy. And then the third would be an intentional act of war or terrorism, which would be like an EMP or something. So those are always in the back of my mind. But I think our economy's kind of in shambles.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with you. That's the one that I'm most focused on for the short term. I think that as we were saying earlier in the stream, as they crank up those interest rates, and eventually will force people to stop spending. There's a lot of things there's a domino effect with all of that, and small businesses, which already have been hurt the last few years, are going to be squeezed even more.
Right.
And big businesses will survive by laying off a lot of people. And so then I know we're technically not in a depression. I always put that in air quotes, not in
Right.
in a recession. Pretty soon, I feel like it's going to be not a depression.
Yeah.
And I think that unfortunately, I don't see any path out of that right now. I'm hopeful, but I don't see a good path out of it. And once that happens, they tend to run a couple years, and then it starts to pick up when we get out of it. So the trick is, how do you not lose your house in those couple of years?
Yeah. It's something I learned over COVID is that really nobody's job is safe. I was this close to being furloughed, and my job is emergency management, and I was specifically hired for things like a pandemic, and I was just that close from being furloughed. And it's like if my job is literally to deal with a pandemic hits, and they're like, oh, maybe we don't need you anymore, then no one is really safe.
Mm-hmm. I do think some sectors, somebody had mentioned economic, energy, and hunger. I think some sectors are going to continue to have issues with their power grid. That's going to be an ongoing problem here, and it's going to take a long time for us to figure out some good fixes for that. There's a lot of money involved with upgrading our grid. And then as far as the food shortages go, the way I see it is it's going to be more of like what we've seen. So certain things are going to be hard to get. I don't see it as like walking into your local grocery store and there's nothing. That's hard for me to imagine, but I think you could have like weeks where, certain things are either very, very hard to get. Let's just say eggs, for example. Eggs are very, very hard to find. And if you do find them, they're going to be way more expensive than they are now, which is already very expensive.
Yeah.
But I don't see us getting into a situation like some other nations have where like there's no food to be bought.
Right.
It's going to be very expensive and you might not get exactly what you want.
Yeah, I think our variety is going to be limited. We're so used to such a cushy lifestyle. Our food, we get it from all over the world, and basically anything we want we can have. But if we're down to just like bare bones diets, just the necessities where they can mass produce locally or within a more stable supply chain, we're gonna have to deal with that sort of thing.
I had a friend in the 90s. I've lost touch with him, but he moved to the United States and married another friend of mine. He came from one of the Eastern Bloc countries. And when he came into the United States and the first time he went into a grocery store and saw the abundance of choice, he was so overwhelmed that he actually got a panic attack because like he just didn't know what to do. Like, there's 30 different types of cereals. I've never seen this in my life,
Yeah.
It was completely overwhelming for him. And it took a while for him to start to adjust to that, like that I can go into the grocery store and pick whatever I want. And, so there's an extreme version of food shortages that we've not seen
Right.
here.
That we almost can't even comprehend, really.
Right.
Hopefully we don't have to deal with that, but you see it like after a disaster, a localized disaster.
Oh yeah,
everything's cut off. You only have what you have, and there's no fresh groceries, no gasoline, none of your things that you used to.
You'll see it a little bit here during hurricanes. For those of you who are new to the channel, I'm in coastal South Carolina. And during hurricanes, stores will get wiped down pretty low, not completely bare bones, but they'll get a little low. And it's as soon as the trucks can get back into town, they start replenishing. So it's never been more than a week that I've seen. But like you said, Katrina event, Ian for the west coast of Florida, you're talking about something that's they're city killers, basically. Yeah. All right. You ready for the rapid fires?
Let's do it.
All right. First thing that comes to your mind. Favorite book for your prepper library?
Oh, Alas Babylon.
Okay. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes, if it's paired with savory, salty, like ham
Oh,
or
I like it.
bacon, pineapple, ham, and jalapenos. That's a
Okay.
really good combination.
All right. Favorite flashlight?
The Phoenix PD-25.
Okay. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek.
Ooh.
I mean, I love Star Wars, but yeah, Star Trek got me through my teenage years.
Okay. Star Trek's a little bit more intellectual. Even as a hardcore Star Wars fan, Star Trek is.
And there's so much more, like so many more episodes of, well, Star Wars is catching up now, but but there's just a lot more Star Trek content.
Favorite knife?
Oh, this is kind of depends. So this is my favorite knife. It's the Gerber EAB Light. It's a utility knife.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And it looks worse than it is, but I've gone through a lot of like Benchmade and CRKT and a lot of other pretty expensive knives. If I'm doing something like bushcrafting, then I'm just gonna go with like a trusty Mora knife. But I carry a Leatherman as well. But this knife meets my needs. I usually cut boxes, open packages, just need to cut some string or whatever. And having that, I can do whatever I want to this blade and then swap it out with another 10-cent blade.
Brilliant.
And the whole thing is like 10 or $11.
Okay. And you can shave with it.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to, though.
No shave November is coming up. Favorite food for your pantry?
Oh. I don't know. Favorite food for my pantry. Is this like a food storage food or just food I like?
It could be like Mountain House, or it could be something that you've done, something you've canned up or whatever.
Oh. I'm drawing a blank. I like having cereal on hand. When we have cereal, we just burn through it, but it is kind of just a fun. I eat it as like a nighttime snack or something. So.
Yep. I agree. We always keep a lot of boxes of Cheerios around the house. Yeah. We rotate them. Yeah. Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Beatles.
All right, good choice. And favorite survival movie?
Oh, can I do a TV show?
Okay.
Jericho.
Good choice. Good choice. Now, they never finished it though, right? Like it got cut off before they could finish.
Kinda. They did mostly finish it. They kind of wrapped it up. A lot of people were disappointed. I thought it was good enough ending. I will add for a movie, the Sum of All Fears. I really like that one.
All right, let me grab the last few questions here, and then we're going to start to wind it down. Let me scroll back just a little bit. Yeah, so this is a good question. What do you think about the cut in oil production and the fallout that's going to happen with that?
I don't know. I am a capitalist. So I think there should be a separation of business and state, though. Across the board, all of this stuff that's happening, all of our monetary, everything is this crony type of capitalism or whatever you want to call it, and it is leading to basically all of our problems. So I think a lot of people are controlling things they need to leave alone, and it's going to have impacts on us. Of course, they'll tell us it's not going to have an impact on us or that it's going to only impact the rich. They're always trying to pit us against somebody, but there are definitely people that we don't even – this is like – let's go into conspiracy theory, but it's pretty evident at this point that there are a lot of people who are controlling what happens in the world, including that, and they don't really care if it impacts us at all. And it all leads in. They take advantage of emergencies, and if they can kind of create an emergency and make us more dependent on them, or
definitely, or
seek their help or assistance, then that's what we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there was just the pandemic, and now with the not a recession, it's I don't believe that they were designed for this, but there's definitely people who benefit from massive transfer of wealth when there's a crisis, so people are going to lose their homes in 2023. I wish that weren't so. I'm going to do everything I can to try to get information out there for people to try to prevent that, but people are going to lose their homes in 2023. And the people who are going to benefit the most from that are the people who are in a place with a lot of money and can gobble up properties. And that happened the last few years too. Do you think, I'm not sure what I understand what this is. Do you think the prepping community is being perp?
Oh, there's another one. Penny pinching pepper. Do you think the prepping community is being purposely divided?
Oh, there's more to it. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
at 844. I don't know what they mean by that really either. I think politics are being exploited to divide people.
Yeah.
And even if whether you identify as conservative or liberal, within those groups, everyone's being divided as well. So don't let politics be any part of your identity, really. Like that's a game they're playing, and don't let it separate you. Focus on your needs. They don't like self-reliant people. So don't let politics divide you. Don't go into the cult of personality. Don't think your team is any better than the other team. All of the political parties are playing for the same people, and it's not us. And they work together, and it doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter. So politics are what divide people, even within the prepping community.
I think so. I think it's used as a tool. I think the greatest mistake that we can make is to think of, team red versus team blue, when the real game is the top 1% versus the other 90%, 99%.
Yeah. Well, and really, really it's who has the power that's the problem. And if they're controlling, we see how many politicians have been enriched in the last 3 years, drastically by just pushing for certain policies, and that's across the board. That's red or blue. So they don't have our best interests in mind. The best thing we can do is just ignore them. They're a distraction.
That's right. Yeah, and Burpee Yoga Uncle, I often do think of politics as being much like wrestling. I agree with you there. It's especially the debates. It's like you're watching WWE, and both of which are fake, by the way.
Yeah. What?
What? All right, so let's start to wind it down. Do you have stuff coming up that you want people to be aware of? Like what's coming down the pipeline for you?
Well, on the small scale, I just did a choose your character video, and we got a lot of feedback on recommended characters, so I'll be making that pretty soon.
So there's gonna be a follow up for that one?
There'll be a follow up, yeah.
Awesome.
At least one more, maybe two. And then I just started a podcast called Preparedness Works.
Oh, cool.
So go listen to that. And those are the main things. So I'll keep doing Instagram. That's where I'm most active. You talk to me there. I'll post an occasional YouTube video. And you can get your emergency plan on preparednessguy.com. And then a new podcast, Preparedness Works. The first episode kind of talks about what it is, why it's called Preparedness Works. Basically, the word works, like it works, like it's functional. But it also, if you ask for like the works on a pizza, it's everything that's included in it, or like the works of a clock. It's the inner workings, how it all fits together. So I'm looking at all those things, and I'm looking forward to talking to people about their individual stories on how preparedness worked for them and the lessons we can learn from it.
Very cool. Well, you definitely bring a lot of value to this community. I hope everybody who's watching this tonight definitely go check out Nat's channel, check out his Instagram, check out his website. If you want to do it, get on his mailing list for the free emergency preparedness guide. And I want to say again, thank you so much for being on the channel. You and I feel like we've been friends on Instagram.
Yeah,
and I apologize again that I waited so long to have you over here, but you were a great guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the audience, thank you so much for some great questions tonight. I really appreciate you all. If you enjoyed this tonight, please give us a thumbs up. Again, don't forget to check out Nat's channel. This weekend, I don't know what you got for weather. I see some parts of the country are already getting snow, which is bonkers. We are getting some great weather here, so I got to do a little yard work, get some chores done, things like that. Remember to also call your loved ones, If there's anybody out there that you're holding a grudge against, and it's something that you can let go, you're doing yourself a favor. When you hold on to anger against somebody else, the only person who's hurting the most is you. So you don't have to let them back in your life if they're bad for you. But if you let them go and you let that anger go, you will feel better, frees you up, so that you're gonna be able to grow way beyond that, and you're gonna be so glad that you did. So just think about that, and most importantly, forgive yourself. If you've done things in your past that you regret, just know that we are all human, and every day is a chance to better yourself, to do better things. So instead of beating yourself up about something that you might have done in the past, focus on something that you can do today and tomorrow, and make the best of the time that you have left. I appreciate my audience. Y'all have a great weekend. Keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. This is Nat the Preparedness Guy, and Prepping with Sarge.